Everyone, I'm here with a tag video. It's about your path in books. Now, I saw Katie Flowers do this, but I know she's not the originator. I think, I think it's Tom Benjamin, but I could be totally wrong. So, whoever did start this, please forgive me if I have got you wrong. But yes, shout out to Katie Flowers. I saw her do this, and I think it was a really cool idea. And I said, I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna do this. So it's my spiritual path in books, and I'm going to show you some books that are representative of my present spiritual path. I could go through and talk about all the books that influenced me from the beginning, be a long video, but I think it's also just a little more relevant to talk about things that are current. We are talking, just so you know, on my Patreon this month, we are working with the goddess Freya and talking about sexuality, a pretty big topic. As well as going through one of these books, chapter by chapter on our Witchy Book Club. So if you want to join us, you can go join me there, and that is a shameless self-promotion, I know. But if you're interested, come and join. If not, just stay tuned for the books, whatever. So first of all, I'm going to start with, let's see, which book should I start with? I think I'll start with stuff that's more Wicca, witchy related, and work through to like tarot and stuff. So the first book, where is it? I have a stack of books here, but I didn't put them in order. What's wrong with me? Okay, the first book I'm going to talk about is a book I wish I had when I started out. There's a whole series of these, and I think they're really, really awesome. It is The Inner Temple of Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak. This is an amazing book, which really talks about developing your own power without tools. The inner one is about things like meditation and guided meditations, cleansing your aura, all that kind of stuff. So it's got some really good grounding and centering, basic kind of stuff like that. But it really gets you to take control of your personal energy. And then there's the Outer Temple of Witchcraft, which is, it is Wiccan based, but does talk about, the craft in general and ceremony and ritual. And he's got a whole series here, which I really, really do love. And it really does form, a lot of this stuff does form the basis of how I work as a witch. And yes, it is mostly Wiccan based, but you can adapt it to whatever belief system or practice that you're working with. I just think it's a really great sort of basic one to work with. The next book that I would say represents my past is a hard book that's a little more challenging to get a hold of. It's called The Science of the Craft, and it talks about quantum physics and what it has to do with magic. And it is also an excellent, excellent book, and it really talks again about using, this type of philosophy to manifest things. And it really opens your mind. This person is a scientist. They are a physicist, and so they talk a lot about quantum physics and how that can relate to magic as well. So this is one of my key cornerstone kind of books that I really love. Now, another book, and this is the one we're doing in the Witchy Book Club, is Women Who Run with the Wolves. So the next few books I'm going to talk about aren't necessarily pagan, but they do definitely represent my spiritual path. This book, while not technically pagan, is, for anyone who's read it will attest, is very, very witchy. It's all about women being empowered to be themselves and to tell their stories, and working with archetypes, working with the power of storytelling, the power of ancient stories and myths and legends, as well as fairy tales as well, especially fairy tales, in working with the inner archetype of the wild woman and embracing your wild woman. This is an amazing healing book, and even if you're not pagan, I think you can get a lot out of this. It's very, very cool. The next book I'm going to talk about is a tarot book, and it is The Creative Tarot by Jessa Crispin. This came out, I think, last year or the year before. And this person is a writer, but they're also a tarot reader. And so they wrote this really great book about tarot, using the tarot for creativity. So I love this book. I have a lot of tarot books, but I would say that this book is my favorite book, and is really, if you're a creative person, an artistic person, this is something that I think will really speak to you if you are a lover of the tarot like me. I really love how she will take a card and then talk about an artist, talk about an actor, somebody who's creative, and talk about a little bit about that person and how it relates to that particular card and how you can use that energy as an artist. So it's a very cool book. As for astrology books, I have here 2 of Stephen Forrest books, who is one of my favorite astrologers. He has been around for a while, since like the early 80s. I have here The Inner Sky, which was written in the early 80s, which talks about your birth chart, and then The Changing Sky, which talks about things like transits and progressions. So I recommend both of these books. And he looks at things from what's called an evolutionary perspective. So he also looks at astrology from a psychological perspective, as far as the planets representing different parts of one's psyche. But he also believes in past lives, so he looks at things like the South Node and retrograde planets as being indicators of things from previous lives that you are bringing into this life to work on or to karmically resolve. So it's called evolutionary astrology. And it's really excellent. These are easy to read books. They contain a lot of pop culture references, but of course, because it's written in the early 80s pop culture references. So it's kind of funny. You see like Sally Ride referred to in here, and Ronald Reagan and stuff. So it's very much a product of its time, but the information is still really, really good, and definitely somebody I really admire in the field of astrology. Now, because I'm a creative person, I think that these next books really represent sort of my spirituality on a creative level. And the first is The Artist's Way. I know I've talked about this book before. This is a book that definitely helped change my life. It is a cornerstone book for me. And it really talks about if anyone from any spirituality or religion or any kind of philosophy can use this book, because it uses God very loosely, I would say. But it is definitely about using your creativity, finding your creativity again, and seeing creativity as a spiritual act. And it's sort of on a 12-step model in some ways. It's a 12-week program. I do it every so often because it really gets you back on track creatively. I really highly recommend this book, and it's definitely part of my spiritual practice. The next book that a friend recommended to me last year, and I'm so glad she did, is The War of Art. And again, this is a relatively thin book. You can sit down an afternoon and read it. It is very, very profound though, and it is about being a creative person in the world. And he does come at it from, it's sort of like a tough love perspective for sure, but there's also a spiritual aspect to it too, because much like Elizabeth Gilbert, he sees creative ideas as sort of coming from a spiritual realm, and that you have to be open to listening to it and listening to the muse and showing up every day for your art, no matter what, no excuses. So I do find this to be also, even though it's not a pagan book, this is part of my spiritual path for sure. And then finally, I can't forget about music. This is Sound of the Beast, the complete headbanging story of heavy metal. So what is this doing in a list of my spiritual path in books? Well, I can't deny that this is part of my path, that this is part of my spirituality. For me, heavy metal has been, hard rock, whatever you want to call it, has definitely been something for me that has been psychologically sustaining. I do find joy in and spiritual connection in as well, that I cannot deny, that's for sure. So this book is an excellent book if you want to learn all about the history of it and get a good overview, what's what, who's who. It's an interesting read, so I have to include this in my spiritual path because it is part of it, as evidenced by what's on my wall behind me. So yeah, that's my spiritual path in books, and I know it's kind of a weird collection, that's for sure, but hey, we're all unique, right? And I believe spirituality is a unique thing, and I guess mine's unique to me. So, I want to see what your spiritual path in books is. Again, I'm gonna have to go below, like find who started this tag, credit them in the description box, because I know it's not Katie. I still shout out to Katie because she put one up. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what books are part of your spiritual path, whether in a video, if you've got a video, let me know, or in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, peace, love.